Welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron. If you are into two-channel audio, consider yourself an audiophile or music enthusiast, well, welcome home. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when the next video drops. In today's video, New Record Day takes on the Terminator from Denafrips. That's right, folks. R2R ladder DACs have been quite the buzz in the audiophile world, and this is the first time that I've experienced what they bring to the table. So yeah, is a Terminator going to win over our analog hearts? Is there really something going on with R2R topology, or is this just a silly audiophile buzzword that leads to empty bank accounts and nothing more than that? And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that's exactly what we're going to find out. Today's show sponsor, Vishine Audio, is not only the worldwide distributor for the Terminator, but they also offer the entire lineup of all Denafrips products. Alvin Shi is the founder and owner of Vishine and has been incredibly helpful in answering all my questions while I've been reviewing the Terminator. With a background in audio electronics and passion for all things hi-fi, Alvin managed to transform his hobby into a business and is eager to help anyone with building the hi-fi rig of their dreams. With a helpful team working alongside him, Vishine Audio is the place to go for all things Denafrips. With free worldwide shipping and friendly customer service, what the heck are you guys waiting for? Check out Vishine Audio today. All the links needed are provided in the description box down below. Thank you guys, we certainly do appreciate it. All right, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that we are now offering some exclusive Patreon content. I already have a video ready to rock and roll where I make some comparisons of the Terminator versus other DACs that we have in-house, and even chat about our favorite pairings. So yeah, if that's something that you might be interested in, all the information to sign up is down below. Thanks guys, we appreciate it. Priced just under $5,000, the Terminator is a flagship R2R ladder DAC that comes with a 3-year warranty and is built in China by Denafrips. While this review is going to be concentrating on how it sounds, let's briefly tackle some need-to-know basics before we get started. First and foremost, there are some under-the-radar upgrades that Denafrips is now offering with the Terminator moving forward. First, it now has a temperature-controlled crystal, which costs much more than the previously used Cry-Stick for clock stability. Next, there have been upgrades from the electrolytic caps to EVOX MMK caps, which are 5 times the price of what they replaced. Third, the Terminator now includes WEMA caps, and last, offers the latest BGA DSP board. Best of all, these updates are all tossed into the mix without changing the price you pay for the unit, which last time I checked, is a deal any way you shake it. The Terminator is just under 17 inches wide, 15 inches deep, and just over 4 inches tall. It's built like a freaking tank, and this thing is a backbreaker, weighing in at 40 pounds. Also, you won't find one piece of plastic on the Terminator, and let's get real, at the asking price, we shouldn't. Regardless, the Terminator is solid and deserving of its name. The dang thing looks like it's carved out of one giant hunk of aluminum, and when sitting on a shelf, there is something striking about its clean lines and minimal looks. In terms of connectivity, the Terminator does offer a wide range of digital inputs on the back, including USB, I2S, AES, BNC, optical, and digital coaxial. The DAC also features one set of single-ended and balanced outputs. In my review, I'll be focusing on using the USB input, which is being fed by the Inuos Zenith. I have tried both single-ended outputs and balanced connections into a number of amps here in-house, and I'll be covering those more in detail with the Patreon video. Now, with that being said, a couple deal breakers for some folks will be the fact that the Denafrips functionality is rather minimal, meaning the DAC's front buttons are what you get. No remote, no fancy LCD screen or menus. I, for one, don't care, because with all of my listening needs, I'm simply plugging in the Zenith and I'm done. I don't need to change inputs, and for the most part, left the DAC to non-oversampling. So if changing sampling settings is something that you want to do, you're gonna have to get up and you're gonna have to do it each and every single time. So keep that in mind. That's that. So while the Terminator looks might be enough to turn heads, it's what's under the hood that counts. R2R or resistor ladder DACs are often described as sounding smooth and natural when done right. What does done right mean? Well, Engineering a great sounding DAC is so much more than just picking a topology and slapping it together, but rather taking a close look at everything holistically, such as the power supply, gain stage, capacitors, and resistors, everything being used, and taking everything into consideration, even down to the granular details, is just as important as the topology itself. In the case of the Terminator, or any other DAC for that matter, I think it's my job to ultimately answer one question, and to be honest with you guys, I think it's a question that so many audiophiles getting into digital seem to forget. Maybe they're stuck on measurement graphs or how low the distortion is, and that's fine, but getting to the point, it seems to me there is a lost puzzle piece in all this digital noise, and it comes down to what matters the most. Does the DAC sound analog? You know, I mean, before we look at things like how little distortion it has, or chat about its signal to noise ratio, I think we'd want to know the answer to that question first, right? So again, R2R, tube output, or the latest and greatest Sabre chipset, my goodness, when does it end? As much as I care about this being a resistor ladder DAC, I'll tell you this, my friends, I care so much more about its ability to answer the question, does the Terminator sound analog? And if it does, what does that actually sound like? So before we dive in, I think it's important to mention that I recently experienced a DAC's performance begins long before the DAC itself. Meaning if you want to make the Terminator sound like it should be priced at $1,000, then just plug it into any old laptop and call it a day. I cannot stress this enough, but what you have in front of the DAC is super important. In giving some context, I'm using the ENEOS Zenith as my front end. If you haven't seen our review on the Zen and Zenith, make sure you check it out when you guys get the chance. Another thing that I want to tackle is what we call the time domain. As much of a difference this DAC might or might not make in your system is nothing compared to the difference that you will get by letting your speakers breathe. And here's the kicker. A lot of the wonderful things that you might or might not be able to hear with this DAC will be based on whether or not your speakers are breathing. Please hear me, folks, and hear me well. I'm not here to sell you anything on this channel, and I'm simply going to report what I hear, but I'm going to be blunt with you. There is no way in the world that half of the things I'm going to be talking about in this review would be true if my speakers were slammed up against the wall. Please understand this. The time domain and everything that lives in the time domain is where you begin to unpack the real differences in things like DACs, and I dare say, all the other stuff that so many folks call snake oil. In other words, if you have tried DAC after DAC and came to the conclusion that they all sound the same, well, depending on your room and where your speakers are in that room, I might actually agree with you. All right, enough with the rant. Let's go ahead and dive in. Now, here in Arizona, it gets insanely hot. Summertime can reach well above 100 degrees, and hitting as high as 120 degrees is when things get really interesting. What the heck does this have to do with hi-fi? Well, after thinking about it, I'm about to explain to you what I think is the best way to describe the experience of really good analog. Every time I hear great analog, it's like working in the heat of the day during the peak of summertime. And the second you hear the first notes, it's as refreshing as jumping into a swimming pool. That is to say, and I've heard it a number of times with some of the better analog rigs that I've put together, there is something about the sound that just wraps around you. No, it's not a matter of less or more detail, but how engaging the music sounds. Notice I said music, not the gear. Also, and this is one point that I want to make sure that I hit home, if you think a lot of the things that make analog really special, or any great DAC for that matter, is how it handles the fundamentals like bass, mid-range, and treble extension, well, sunshine, I hate to disappoint you, but that's not what we're going to be chatting about today. Now, before you smash that thumbs down, let me tell you a little secret. Most, if not all of the great things that these high-dollar DACs do and analog does, it's not even in the fundamentals to begin with. And as far as I'm concerned, the real thumbs down on all of this is the fact that nobody seems to be talking about it until now. So wait a second. I thought you said we aren't going to be talking about the fundamentals. Why in the heck are we then chatting about bass impressions? That's a fair question, folks. And while we aren't going to be talking about how much or how little bass the Terminator offers, We are going to be talking about how the bass actually sounds, even down to the decay structure of the notes being rendered. Now, if that sounds like audiophile fairy tales, well, take a seat. Give me a minute. We have a whole world of sonic landscapes that you have yet to experience, and I am about to bake your audiophile noodle. Ladies and gentlemen, bass is not supposed to be one-note well farts. Sure, we need to start with the right speaker to even begin this conversation, and with the spatial audio sapphires on deck, that's a checkmate before the game even begins. If you haven't seen that review, do it now, skip to the bass impressions, come back. Trust me, it will be worth it, and we are going to dive deeper into the rabbit hole anyway. Listening to Solar Energy, which is one of my all-time favorites for testing upright bass, the Terminator is the closest I've been to hearing how this sounds on a great analog rig. Lively, robust, dynamic, but even more real, as if we are there while it's being recorded. When I focused my attention on the Terminator's decay structure, I started to peel back the layers of its ability to resolve the inner details. That is to say, can I hear the resonance of the wood inside the bass? Can I hear the vibrations of the body as it's changing from note to note up and down on the neck? Can I clearly make out a shift in the dynamic structure as he plays? And if so, does it sound lifelike, as if he's in the room with me? Folks, with the Terminator, the answer to all these questions is yes, and never before hearing the Terminator has it been so close to this level of performance on a digital rig. Switching gears from all things bass and focusing our attention on the mid-range, what I noticed with the Terminator is a sense of ease in the vocal delivery. Granted, a crappy recording is going to be a crappy recording no matter what, but when something is well recorded and mastered, well, watch out. When it comes to the midband, the Terminator has a way of replacing something that might have been described as lifeless or two-dimensional with something that sounds like the real deal, the actual performance, as if the singer has stepped up to the mic and is singing right in front of you. There also seems to be a sense of velocity which gives the attack of the vocals the ability to punch through the mix. What I'm hearing in this regard is beyond what I've experienced in most digital rigs. Also, let's get this part right. It's way past the usual forum chit-chat that might sum up the overall mid-band experience of the Terminator to something watered down and lame like, oh yeah, that's a warm and smooth sounding DAC. Warm? Are you kidding me? No, folks. With this type of presentation, you are literally altering your two-channel listening room into a musical experience that's both lifelike and convincingly hi-fi. When it comes to all things extension, detail retrieval and spatial cues are what makes or breaks what we hear, and whether or not the DAC can do this naturally is what makes it worth chatting about. The Terminator seems to ride the line of neutrality when it comes to its top end and decay structure. At no point do I find it tilted or pushed forward, and neither do I find it to be laid back or relaxed. Whether I'm listening for the bite in cymbals or much higher into the room decay, I'm always struck by how balanced this DAC presents the music. I guess now is as good as time as any to mention that at the same time, I don't find the Terminator to be sweet or euphoric as the Amber 3 DAC that we recently reviewed. The truth is, the top end of the Terminator just is. It's not a top end plus anything else, even if whatever that is adds something that makes it interesting, beautiful, or makes it unique. Even when rocking out, cymbal hits and crashes never bothered me. I found the top end to be rather balanced and rendered some of the rough or jagged edges beautifully, rounding them out just enough to sound musical and at the same time non-fatiguing. I also took note of room decay and reverb trails. They're very obvious when listening to the Terminator. Spatial cues on top end extension popped from the mix, and when you have a great sounding recording on your hands, my goodness. As an example, I recently discovered a beautifully recorded album, Alive in the Wilderness by Endless Field. Man, you guys want to talk about hearing intricate details and decay structure on top? This, folks, is where the Terminator really shined. The staging structure of the Terminator is what you would expect when listening to a flagship DAC. It's both wide and incredibly deep. When closing my eyes, I have a clear vision in my head as to where each and every single person in the band is located. Even more, I'm able to trace lines around every single one of them, which speaks to just how quiet and black the background is with the Terminator. Combined with what it's doing so well with vocal content, performances can be incredibly exciting as vocals seem to take shape and materialize out of perfect silence. And now that I think about it, since most of the things we have been talking about all exist in the time domain, which is directly related to staging abilities, it's pretty clear this is an area where the Terminator will show who's boss. Everything I heard in this stack regarding Soundstage was very impressive and certainly worth celebrating. Taking everything I have heard in this DAC, it seems to me that this might be the most natural and analog sounding that I've heard so far. The recently reviewed Amber 3 DAC is equally stunning as the Terminator, but in a different way. With the Terminator, it seems to me that it's about putting the music back together again exactly how it was. It does not seem to add anything, nor does it sound like it takes anything away. Most importantly, it answers the question, does this DAC sound analog? And in the case of the Denafrips Terminator, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I've heard in this review, the answer to that question is absolutely. And that, my friends, is where the conversation should begin.